Hey beauties, good morning to everyone. You know, beautiful people, this has been an old adage, an age old problem. It's almost systemic, where, and I'm talking as it relates to husbands and wives, where the man is saying, woman, she closes the shop, does not give him sex, especially if she's tired, especially if she's not in a good mood. She's angry with him, she's angry about something, one host of things. And I said, and I have quite a number of married friends, and it's a complaint, with the men. And I said, let me look at what the scripture says. And I'm paraphrasing what First Corinthians chapter 7 says, and especially from verses 2 going down a little bit. And it basically said that each man must have his own wife. Unless it is mutual, by mutual consent, you separate for a time sexually in terms of not having sex with each other, especially for prayer, fasting, and so on. But ensure that you come back together within a reasonable time, lest you be tempted by the devil to go out and lose self-control. And obviously we're talking about like infidelity and so on. And the husband's body belongs to his wife, and the wife's body belongs to her husband. We're not talking about control. We're not talking about witchcraft and these things. We're not talking like that. Obviously, the man not supposed to browbeat you for sex, and vice versa. We're not talking like that. But in other words, some of the excuses that women generally, and it's generally women, give: oh, I'm tired, oh, I'm upset with you. No. I was listening to the late great and the most notable Dr. Miles Monroe, and he said something. Women, I don't think you understand something. He said, men do not want sex, they need it. He was going from a physiological perspective that I don't remember all of the things because it was some time ago that I listened to it, but in other words, they will develop blue balls where it can become very painful to them physically. I don't know if he said that they will develop some sort of complications, but possibly. So they will develop that. Maybe how God made them, maybe the sex drive is much stronger than women. Although you do have one or two women who have a high sex drive, but in general, that we're talking men there. You see how, all right, let me see if I can make you understand women. You see how we love money? When I say love money, I'm not talking about what the Bible says. The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Is a root, not the root. All right? But because it's not just loving money like that. Like we look at the money, oh, money, you look no, because you want to do your hair, you want to do your nails, you want to go do this, do that, all sorts of things we want to do because of how we are wired as women. So that money is an overarching bartering tool that we use. So it's like a need for us. And even in that very same chapter, it says a husband must do his husbandly duties to the woman, and the woman must do her wifely duties to her husband. Obviously, we know that the husbandly duties is to provide spiritually, financially for his wife, spiritually and financially, predominantly, yes. Take care of the household in terms of the provision, provide security, make sure she feels secured, not abusive to her, must be gentle to her, communicate with her effectively, because men, you struggle with the communication aspect generally. Wife, you must be very peaceful. You must not be like a dripping pipe, nagging. You take care of your household, you being the caregiver, while he's like the spiritual provider and the financial provider. You understand what I'm saying? And, you give sex to your husband. So it therefore suggests what the man is saying. You see, even if you're upset, think about it. You have men, they do. Man and wife could have just argue. They talk about the emotions they run while you can move from anger into this high sexual feeling or into sadness. The emotions are almost like they link with each other. Like there's a little there's a circumference, there's a little circle, and then the different emotions just they itch on. It's like they're tacked on, or sewed in on that little circumference, for example. I'm just giving an example. That is why you wonder how somebody move from laughter into cry into wanting to have sex, like a high sex feeling come over, sexual thing come over them, or anger. And you say, what the heck? This person is crazy. No, the emotions, they interlock. They're intertwined. That's why you can just move into this emotion from that emotion, almost immediately. But there are some situations where the woman is very, very angry and they take it personally. It doesn't even turn them on. It turns them off. But for the man, I don't know. It's come like something. They know how to separate something. No matter how him have to be really turned off to the core, you know. But outside of that, he will still want to have sex with his wife, and it's really her duty to. What he has to do is be a little bit more savvy. You know, I don't really want to say like a Casanova, but maybe in a sense, borrow little ideas from them. Know how to take down that level for her. If she's even tired, unless it's a tiredness where maybe as she comes, she just knocks out. You know, outside of that, if it's just like a tight, know how to say, all right, honey, I know you're tired, but you might not have to do much. But let me just get that pressure off of me, you know, because there are a lot of benefits, you know. I was reading on it that comes from having sex frequently. You're really supposed to have sex frequently. That's what it is saying. And he said, it says your body belongs to each other. That's what the book of Corinthians saying. You know, it's implicit. Right? It says only for when you're maybe breaking, like you come together and say, all right, honey, we're going to maybe fast for the next 7 days, 3 days, 21 days, 40 days. And based on how the fact that we're pulling away from food, we're not going to have that energy. Or I think we should just kind of maybe pull back maybe from sex for maybe a few days or whatever it is, or maybe that week. You do not make it extended because the enemy will come in. He will come in. And unfortunately, we usually come in and attack the man in that area. Men, you need to provide for your wives, because sometimes she's turned off because you're not taking care of your wife. I'm not talking about a man who is probably not, he's jobless. We're talking about a man who is working, but mean and stingy. You're turning off your wife just as so, and that ends up making her not, it's very hard for her to give her body to you. Your body belongs to each other, right? Unless there is a reason, like as it mentioned, prayer and fasting to God, because you want to kind of consecrate yourself and just, focus on God predominantly for that moment, in that sense, especially if it's for a particular situation that's different. But do not stay from each other too long. That is how a lot of infidelity come in marriages. A lot of infidelity. If we really follow the Bible, not only in terms of sex and marriage, but in terms of other things, if we really follow that blueprint for life, we would not be in majority of the problems we would not be in, Some of them we can't escape because there is a devil and there is a thing called sin. We were born in sin and shaped in iniquity. Outside of the ramifications of those facets or areas, let me tell you, man, a lot of things that I, end up making some silly mistakes, or let us put it that way. Because I was ignorant. I didn't know ignorance means lacking knowledge. I didn't know. So a lot of these marriages are not being saved because we're not following the blueprint for life. We're not. And what we do, we act on our emotions. And they say the divorce rate just shoot through the roof. The divorce rate between Christians and non-Christians are basically one-on-one, neck and neck. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Divorce rate. And at the end of it, sometimes when years pass, you will hear both men and women say, I regret, I should not have divorced my wife. The man says, the woman says, I should not have divorced my husband. Because now your emotions are settled. You're now thinking differently. Your emotional intelligence has improved, has increased. And you realize the signs of the times. And you realize how life is. And they say, oh my God, I should have just waited out a little bit more. My mother's best friend, a very feisty and bubbly lady. She said, Toni-Ann, she was married for 50 odd years. Her husband had died a couple of years ago. She said the first 20 years were tumultuous, hard, difficult, rough. And it had to be God and love that kept them. The first 20 years were horrible. But she said, the next 30 odd years, Toni-Ann, she fell right in love, walked in love with her husband again. She loved the man that she married. It became beautiful because she stood the test of time. She stayed the course. She persevered. She never gave up. He never gave up. You follow? And she said, I beg you, Toni-Ann, when you get married, I'm not saying that you must take abuse and kick up and box up and thump up and, bad treatment, and you don't deal with it. Obviously, that's not what she's saying. But, sometimes if you check the reasons for divorce, when they come with irreconcilable differences, are some foolishness in some cases. And they allowed it to fester and get out of hand. So, husbands and wives, your bodies belong to each other. Unless you agree together, you're supposed to have whole heap of sex. Sex to enough, whole heap of sex. And don't be boring too. Don't be boring. Learn, the good things. Not to go off into some wacky things way out. But enough sex, it's right under the guise of marriage. Guys, follow me on TikTok. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Share this message, please.